Assembly will hear an address by His Excellency Qu'Andry Rajoelina, President of the High Transitional Authority of the Republic of Madagascar. I request protocol to escort His Excellency.
On behalf of the General Assembly, I have the honor to welcome to the United Nations His Excellency Qu'Andry Rajoelina, President of the High Transitional Authority of the Republic of Madagascar, and to invite him to address the Assembly.
Monsieur le Président,
Mr. President, Mr. Secretary General, ladies and gentlemen, heads of state and government, honourable delegates, ladies and gentlemen. After 3 years of political crisis and after a 3-year absence, Madagascar is today proud to resume its place here among you in the Committee of Nations. On behalf of my fellow countrymen, I am particularly honoured to participate in this general debate on the theme of the role of mediation in the peaceful settlement of disputes. The multiple crises around the world, most recently in North Africa, demonstrates the importance and relevance of this theme. Madagascar has been through one herself. It has just taken a decisive step, indeed thanks to the help of international mediation, which has allowed the Malagasy to reach among them a promising consensus. Thus, allow me first of all to pay a sincere tribute to His Excellency, the late Dag Hammarskjöld, the former Secretary General of this great organisation, a pioneer of preventive diplomacy, an architect of the concept of maintenance of peace, as we commemorate the 50th anniversary of his tragic passing. During his mandate, he worked tirelessly to enhance the legitimacy of the United Nations in international peaceful dispute resolution. And now, again, we owe him greatly for the universal recognition of the virtues of mediation to resolve tensions, even conflicts. We have just commemorated the tragic events of the 11th of Septembre 2001, which shook the city of New York and indeed the whole world. We are also 10 years on the United Nations Year for Dialogue Between Civilizations, a year during which dialogue of cultures and the culture of dialogue were promoted on the international scene in order to combat the clash of civilizations. But when we speak of conflicts, we have in mind two differing ideologies which do not uphold the same interests. This can apply to two countries, two regions, or even to a government and its people. In the latter case, when one does not respect the other, this triggers a popular uprising which leads to a conflict, leading to a crisis. Hence the importance of the role of mediation for settling disputes using peaceful means. In that regard, any mediation should collate first-hand information. It should note up close the realities on the ground in a conflict before proposing a solution which can be lasting and acceptable for all. Mr. President, history has shown that excessive acts by a leader, by using force, lead to serious repercussions for his country, which can lead to chaos. It can cost the lives of scores, of hundreds, even thousands of innocents. And it is a whole people who unfortunately suffer the grave consequences. Why? Why? Because often true solutions are too long in coming, which plunges a large section of humanity into poverty, since to counter suffering, anguish, despair, we have to have an answer. We want to change, and we are going to change. To better illustrate my point, allow me to speak of the case of my country, Madagascar. You know just as well as I do that the great island has, since the end of 2008, been in the midst of a political crisis. The Malagasy people rose up with determination to break with a past marked by bad governance, violation of democratic principles, of human rights, and of the rule of law, engendering widespread impoverishment, unbearable social misery on an everyday basis, and a growing frustration felt by the majority of my fellow countrymen. Thus, the Malagasy people demanded a better life and the advent of true change, all the while strengthening the respect of universal principles. Mr. President, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, just when the search for a solution to the crisis requires the principles of consensual and inclusive handling of a transition, and just as this consensus proves difficult to obtain, commendable mediation efforts between the Malagasy protagonists were implemented both by Malagasy civil society organizations, bilateral and regional partners of the Great Island, as well as by the international community. Allow me to mention here and to commend wholeheartedly the sterling patient efforts of the mediation team of the Southern African Development Community, SADC, a regional structure mandated by the African Union, and also the tireless initiatives carried out by other entities such as the United Nations, the International Francophonie Organization, and the Indian Ocean Commission. The involvement of all these actors concerned in mediation was critical in responding effectively and pragmatically. In other words, at a level commensurate to the emergency and to the vital needs of the population and of the Madagascar economy, which would have been weakened if the crisis and the negotiations had run any longer. Mr. President, the people of Madagascar were patient and showed unprecedented courage in the peaceful resolution of the political crisis, and this in an exemplary manner, despite all the economic and social restrictions, as well as the absence of international aid that they suffered from for those 3 years. The post-crisis roadmap for Madagascar, proposed by the SADC mediation, which was initialed on the 9th of March 2011 and was signed by the political factions representing the vast majority of stakeholders in Madagascar on the 17th of December. The great political family of Madagascar is now determined to move forward and to work together in the higher interest of the nation for the well-being, the peace and serenity of the people in their entirety. An extremely important step has just been taken, but there is still a long way to go. There is a need, therefore, to focus them primarily on the implementation of the provisions of the roadmap through the sheer respect for the people's primary aspirations, leading towards the holding of free, credible, fair and transparent elections, which in my opinion is the only solution, definitive solution to the crisis and for the return to constitutional normality. We have finally managed to reach a consensual agreement reflected by the sense of compromise of which we are particularly proud due to the profound culture of Fiavana. This is a concept of societal life which the Malagasy have followed since the dawn of time, that one can summarize with the principles of fraternity, solidarity, mutual respect, tolerance, and wisdom. Thus, we convey our determination to move forward towards the reconstruction and development of our society. For my part, I will spare no effort and will do my utmost to ensure that we fully achieve the anticipated results and for them to be rapidly crowned with success. Thus, I launch a solemn appeal to the international community to make its individual or collective contribution which is needed for its implementation. In particular, I draw the attention of the United Nations on the work that it must do in terms of the electoral needs assessment in Madagascar, so that a electoral timetable drawn up in a credible, neutral, transparent, independent framework based on the respect of fundamental rights and international standards can be established as soon as possible. Mr. President, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, history has taught us that even after the use of force, any war, any conflict always ends around a table. This clearly shows that mediation can be chosen as an alternative to arms. We oppose the utilization of any kind of repression. It is entirely possible to resolve disputes through peaceful means, as is the case with Madagascar, by falling back on the most effective instrument, which is dialogue. The world is evolving. The world is changing. And all of us leaders here want a better world for our respective peoples. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, it is possible, and we can do it. I thank you.